Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of the Player First podcast with co-host Fernando, also known as Coach Fernando, and
That's right.
myself, Coach Leo, also known as Leonardo. Okay. If this is the first time you're watching this podcast, I'd like to welcome you. And the whole purpose behind what we are doing is Coach Fernando and myself. We are on a very big mission to reach over 1 million kids worldwide, and more specifically, club players, club soccer, club football players. Now, Coach Fernando runs Tiempo Soccer Academy, which is based all the way in wonderful New York. And I run the Football Domain Academy, which is based here in London, UK. So, Coach Fernando, before we begin and get into what we are talking about, how has your week been with your academy over there in New York?
It's been a good week. Great weather this week, no rain. So it's been good. It's been good. Lots of training sessions we got in this week. Kids are getting better, and that's what it's all about. So
That's
doing well. How about you over there in London?
Yeah, all is well down here. We've actually had as well really good weather this last week. So we've had some really good sessions. Last week, our under 12s won their first game of the season. So it was quite a good weekend in that area. So it was good. We'll talk about it a bit later. Now we'll get straight into what we're going to be talking about today. Now we've reached last week we reached the milestone of 10 episodes. Today is episode number 11. Now we're aiming to get to 20. And every week I learn so much off you, and I really enjoy doing these. So
same here, man. Same here.
So something with the amount of episodes and the milestones that we've reached comes similar or related to the topic we're going to be talking about today, which is how to perform well consistently. Right? When we started this episode, we agreed to make this a consistent thing weekly.
Right.
So today we're going to talk about how do you as a player watching stay consistent to your training so you can perform better on the field and on the weekends when you play for your club. So first of all, Fernando, to begin with, I want to get your brains on this. What is consistency for you? What does being consistent mean?
Yeah, good question. So I think consistency just means being able to do it over and over and over again, almost like you're a machine or you're a robot in a way. Obviously, you're not going to be able to be a robot all the time, right? There's going to be days where maybe some things happen, and that's okay. But I think consistency really means over a long period of time, right? So I don't think you could measure consistency in a short period of time. I think it has to really go over a long period of time, whether that be months, years, decades, whatever, but over longer periods of time.
Yeah, love that. And I know something that I like talking about, which I've been studying for the last year or so, is discipline and how to stay disciplined, and more specifically self-discipline. And consistency relates a lot to discipline, because once you become so consistent at doing something, then you become more disciplined. And as you said, you do things without thinking about it. Like it just becomes like a habit. So when you were playing, how consistent were you with your training? Was this something that your coach needed to like tell you, listen, Fernando, you need to train by yourself? Or was it something that you said, right, I know I need to be consistent with my training so I can perform better? What were you like as a player?
Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, I think it wasn't about training as much. It was just about, I just loved it. Yeah. And so I would just constantly be in my backyard kicking the ball, or just running around with the ball. But I always just had the ball, even inside in my house, I would be with the ball at my feet, kicking around in the house and whatnot.
Still are, right?
Yeah, yeah, still am. Yeah, it's just the thing you do, you know, something you fall in love with. So it's something I fell in love with early on. But as I got older in the game, around my high school years, I wish I was more consistent with my training. I wish I was more disciplined, like you mentioned. I wish I had that more during that time, because I wasn't as consistent as I should have been or could have been. And I know because of that, my playing it declined because of that, right?
Yeah.
So I do wish I had that almost like education on what it meant to be more consistent, disciplined, you know, what was required to become a better player. So I think when I was younger, I just loved it and I just did it and it was great. But as I got older, I sort of fell out of that discipline, that consistency. So I think it's, and I saw it in my game, I think it's super important to be consistent, be disciplined. If you're a player or a parent or a family out there that wants to achieve things in the game, whether you want to play in college or maybe semi-professional, professional one day, whatever it is, or even just play for your high school varsity team out there or whatever it is. But if you have some aspirations, consistency is definitely important.
100%.
What about you, Coach Leo?
Yeah, I'm very similar to you. I always joke about how I got married from a really young age. I always say this to everyone. I got married at the age of 9 to football.
It's the first love, man. It's the first love.
It's the first love, and thanks to the game, I've become the person I am. Because this will be another topic for another day.
Yeah. You and me could talk about this for days, I think.
Yeah. So, but something that now thinking about it, so I was very similar to you, always with a ball. I mean, I still am. Sometimes I even sleep with a ball. Exactly. But what I never had was I used to always be out. So I used to always be out in the park with my friends playing or in the garden. Just because back in the day, that's what we done. We weren't really as addicted to video games because one, it wasn't really around. And two, the ones that were around, we consumed very little because we enjoyed being out more.
Right.
We were just more of an outside generation, I think.
I agree. Yeah.
Now, what I never done though is I never had structured training by myself. You know.
That's true. Yeah.
So everything I used to do was more like just street football, work creativity. You know, when you played 3v3s, 5v5s. But there was nothing sort of more specific to say, right, I'm going to work on this today so I can improve.
Right.
Now, when it becomes a bit more structured, that's when you sort of develop, I believe, better habits, right? And you improve better technically. When you're sort of doing street soccer, street football, yes, you improve creativity, but you might pick up really bad habits that unless a coach tells you, right, you have to do it this way, you just go, or you'd always do it. You take it from a young age into when you keep playing as an adult. So I'd say, I was very consistent, in terms of always having a ball at my feet, always wanting to play. I remember back in the days where football wasn't really big on TV either.
Yeah.
It's not like now that where you can watch like this football 24/7 basically. Back in the day, there'd be one game on TV a week, and that one game we were all watching because that's all we had. So it was just a different generation, and I believe that kids now definitely lack this consistency that we're about to talk about today. Just because kids today, I feel that if it's not structured, they don't do it.
Yes. I was just going to say that. I think what you were saying is, you were playing on the street growing up, And I think that's where it needs to start, right? I think that's where kids need to start to love the game, because that's where you learn to just appreciate the ball, have fun playing, have fun with your friends. But then over time, as you get maybe a little older in the game, you do need more of that structure that you're talking about, because like you said, you may not have a coach to tell you how to do something, the correct way with the correct technique or whatnot, when you're just playing out in the streets. But nowadays, it's funny because unless, like you said, unless kids, and it's a structured practice and, hey, come here to this field at this time, kids don't play anymore.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's funny that although we need that structured time, there is no consistency because they're not playing on their own.
No.
So kids need both, in my opinion. They need that street time consistently with the ball playing all the time.
Yeah.
But then they also need the structured coach-led type of time as well. So kids don't get enough of that street time where they just enjoy to play.
Yeah.
Which is, it's kind of unfortunate.
It is. It's a different generation.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. A lot of the video games and the technology and keeps them all indoors on.
Exactly. Yeah.
This thing.
So number one thing to building consistency, I believe, now I want to hear your thoughts on this, is building a routine, right? We all know kids nowadays, if they don't have like structure, they don't do it.
Yeah.
So in terms of wanting to perform better or staying consistent to your performances, I believe that you need to stay consistent to your training, right? Now, as we talked about, kids nowadays, if it's not within their teams or if it's not with a personal trainer, they don't do it. But training and improving your performances should be a daily thing, right? You should be doing at least maybe 20 minutes a day or 30 minutes by yourself, training each day. And how do you do that? You do that by building a routine, I believe. Now, what would your thoughts be on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think kids need to train more. They need to practice more. They need to play on their own, train on their own. And that's something that, me as a coach, I look to try to build with my players is that ownership, that accountability of like, listen, it's at the end of the day, the player that you become and you develop to is due to you and your efforts and the work that you put in and the training that you put in, right? Because I can't make players train, right? So ultimately it has to come from them. I can provide a little bit of structure, but it has to come from them.
Yeah.
So I totally agree. They have to build some type of habit or routine into their schedule that it becomes a consistent thing where they're just training on their own every day. Like you said, a little bit every day. It doesn't need to be 2 hours, an hour and a half every day, right? It could be 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And sometimes it doesn't even have to be training. It could just be those days where you go out with your friends and play for an hour or two in the park. That could count as your training for that day, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't always have to be super structured, but you should build in a daily habit or a daily routine where you're doing something that's helping you get better.
Correct.
Okay. Whether that means maybe even you're just stretching. You spend 20 minutes just stretching, just working on relaxing your muscles, because that's going to help you the next day perform better.
Yeah.
For example, or whatever it is, there's always something you can do every single day that'll improve your performances.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just like you said, it's building that time into your schedule. Like, okay, every day I'm doing something. What is it that I'm going to do on this day to help me improve?
Yeah, 100%. And it's a good thing you said about that you say that to your players, because I say that to mine as well. Now, at our academy, we've got different age groups, but I sort of treat them all the same. Because at the end of the day, it's the same message, right? Whether you're 9, whether you're 11, whether you're 13, whether you're 14, you have to train by yourself a little bit. And as you said, it doesn't have to be a proper structured training session. It can be something simple like go and play with your friends, or go and play with your brother, your sister, whatever. But something I say to them is you got to be doing little things each day that get you closer to your goal, right? Which are the goal we're talking about is performing better. When you get on the field, you're more confident. So building consistency daily is 100% will help to build an all-round great.
I have a saying with some of my players of, I tell my players to imagine their talent or their ability to play as a huge bucket. Just like imagine a huge bucket, the biggest bucket you've ever seen in the world.
Yeah.
And every single time you touch the ball, every single time you go to a training session, every single time you go out with your friends to play 3v3s or whatever, that's one little drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
Just one drop of water in the bucket.
Yeah.
And so day after day after day, week after week, month out, right, year after year, etc., that bucket starts to fill up.
Yeah.
Right. And so over time, if you're consistent, which is what we're talking about here, if you're consistent with your training, with touching the ball, with practicing, with building that routine, you're going to perform better.
Correct.
Right. You're going to get better. So that consistency is huge. Every little bit counts.
Yeah, 100%. And I love that as well, because if you vision it, it's like little drops into the bucket, and then that bucket gets bigger, more full, right?
Right.
And it's the same way with your studying, right? If you're studying daily, you're going to get good at that subject, and you're going to know that subject off by heart.
Right.
If you're training daily, a little bit each day, you're going to master that technique.
Yep.
You'll master your performance. You'll get better. You will overcome your teammates. So I love it. Now, it's easy said than done, right? Saying, right, go and train a little bit each day, but we need a bit of motivation. I'm really bad at this because, like, for example, going to gyms. Like, gyms have never motivated me. And to be honest with you, I don't like going to the gym because it creates boredom for me. I'll get really hyped maybe the first week or so when I join. Right. And then after a while, it's like, I can't be bothered now.
Right.
Now, I've realized that the reason why that happens is because I don't set myself any targets or goals when I go there. I simply go, turn up, and then sort of figure it out as I go along.
Right.
So this relates really well with staying consistent to training, because if you're a player and you've set yourself a goal, right, 25 minutes each day, I need to work on something. If you don't have a plan, you're just going to turn up at that field, not know what to do, and you're going to get bored the same way I got bored at a gym.
Right.
And then you're going to lose that consistency. You might do it for a week, and then you're like, oh, I don't want to do this now.
Yeah, that's 100%. That's 100% right. So I think it's super important to set goals, right? To have your ideas set of what you want to achieve in your trainings and in your games and your performances. All right. So always having something that you want to accomplish or work on.
Yeah.
Whether that be a training session or whether that be a game. And it could be, again, it doesn't always have to be super structured and specific. You know, one day, if you just want to play out with your friends, today you're just going to work on your creativity. Just see what you can do with the ball in the game. Right. And another day, it might be more structured. It might be something where you're working on something a particular technique, or you want to work on your finishing. Right. So you go to the park and you have a plan of finishing from different angles on the field, for example. Right. But you're right. If you don't have a plan, if you don't have a goal, you don't have something that you're trying to do, eventually you're just going to not do it. So that's 100%. I agree.
You'll get bored. And and as you mentioned very briefly, it's the same with your games, right? Turn up to a game with a plan. Like, I want to complete a certain number of passes. I want to keep a clean sheet if I'm a goalkeeper. If I'm an attacking player, I want to score a certain amount of goals, or I want to assist. It just gives that extra motivation to you to say, right, everything I'm doing, there's a purpose behind it.
Right.
It's not like I'm just turning up and just doing it for doing it. You know, you turn up and you have goals, you have targets in place, so that session or that game is more meaningful, right?
Right.
So, so what are a couple of things that you say to your players before games then?
Yeah, I mean, I think setting goals before games is really important.
Yeah.
Because like you said, it gives you something to strive for within your game. Mm-hmm. And what I would tell players out there is don't always focus on the winning and the statistics, or, you know, the scoring and all that type of stuff all the time. It's okay to have those things. It's okay to want to win. It's okay to want to score goals. There's nothing wrong with that. But you also want to have other goals that are more related to your performance and to improvement. So if you're working on, you're a midfield player and you want to work on your passing and your distribution, right? Like you said, maybe your goal is to complete 20 passes for the game. And what I would do is I would have someone, either a family member that's watching you, or maybe the coach can help you as well. If they can tally up your passes for the day, you can approach your coach like, hey, can you tell me how many passes I completed? Mm-hmm. Right? Or maybe you want to work on your 1v1 ability today. So you say, you know what? When I have a 1v1, I'm going to take a player on every time. Every time I have 1v1, I'm going to take them on, just because you want to work on that, right? So you want to have certain targets, certain goals that motivate you, like you said, throughout the game, so that you know what you're doing out there. You're not just showing up to the game and just running around and doing whatever, but you have some idea of what you want to accomplish.
Mm-hmm. Love that.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So we'll go back to my example, the gym. Okay, so and
we got to get you to the gym, man. We got to fix that, man. We got to fix that.
Right, and this is going to work well for our last point, or our next point, which is, so once I started to get into a routine of going to the gym,
right,
and I started to see results, and I started to see, right, this is working. What a lot of us do is we stay satisfied with that. We're like, right, I've lost weight, or I've got a six-pack, not in my case.
We'll get there.
Or I built a bit of muscle, or in a player's situation, it might be I've scored 2 goals, or I've scored a hat trick, or I've kept a clean sheet, which was my goal. Now, what do you do as a player to say, right, I need to keep going now? I can't just get to my target and say, right, I've done it. I don't need to train by myself anymore. So how do you keep that consistency to keep performing well, where after you have performed well, or after you've had the game of your life?
Right. I think that's a really good question. And I think that if you ask the best players in the world this question, they will say they're never satisfied.
Yeah.
Right? They're never satisfied. Right? Because if they were, after one Champions League run, that's it. They'd be done, right? But that's why the greatest players win the most trophies, right? They keep on seeking more and more and more. They're just never satisfied. So as a player, I think you need to have that same mindset, that same attitude of not being satisfied with one great performance or even one great season. Because you got to think about the long term too. I'm sure you have other goals that you want to achieve. And if you want to achieve those things, then you have to be performing great over a long period of time. And so you have to keep your goals in mind. But I also think specifically, maybe from one game to another, I think it's important to reflect on your performances. Because if you can look back at your performance, and if you had a really great performance, that's good, that's positive. But there's always one little thing, even if everything was amazing, there's always something you can do even better, right? Or there's always something we can improve a little bit. So I think even on those really great games, it's about looking for something we can improve on for the following week. So, you know, I think it's about never being satisfied and always looking for what it is that we can improve.
Love that. So reflecting on what you've done well. And also not just reflecting on that performance, but reflecting, right, what have I done well to get to that target, right? And what do I need to continue to do to have another great game, to have another great performance? So if I was training every day by myself for half an hour and it worked because on the Sunday morning I played the game of my life, I need to keep doing that because it's worked.
Analyze, right? Analyze your what you're doing. See what's working, what's not working, and keep changing, keep evolving.
Love that. Awesome. Okay, Fernando, before we start to wrap up, would you like to share anything else on this topic of consistency? So here's a question for you. What do you do as a coach to stay consistent? Because it's not just all about the players, right?
That's 100%. I love that.
Coaches need to sharpen the sword as well.
Absolutely. It's 100% true. So I think going back to the routine building, it's about building daily tasks, daily habits that you perform. So for me personally, something I do every day is I plan out my days, right? So I make sure that I'm very structured in terms of my days, that I build in time for certain things, whether that be educating myself or writing session plans or communicating with my players and my families, whatever it is that I need to do, right? But I build in that time as a daily schedule to help me stay consistent, right? So I think that's a big one that has worked for me really, really well. And I think also going back to the last point we said about evaluating, you know, for my players, one thing I like to tell them is, what's one thing you did well? What's one thing you can improve? And what's one thing that you learned? And if you could come out of every performance, whether that be a training session or a game, with those three things, that'll help you improve for the next week, right? And so as a coach, I try to do that for myself. I try to reflect on how I performed during the session, right? What did I do well with the players? What could I have improved with the players? Was it my communication? Did I not communicate the right way? Whatever it is, what could I do better? And then what did I learn maybe about my players or about my coaching or whatever? So I try to do that as well, along with the players.
Really important. That's something that I've done. I'm not as consistent with it, but I do remember there was one period in my coaching career where I was doing that every week, and that's something I want to go back into the habit of doing. But when I was doing that, it was amazing because you analyze your performance as a coach and you start to see, right, this is what I need to tweak, or these are the things I need to do better. And the more you analyze, the more data you gain, and the more you improve, right? Because as we were saying, you're self-reflecting, and what better person than yourself to self
I was just going to say that.
like
You know yourself the most. No one knows you better than you, right?
Yeah.
Or at least no one maybe no one shouldn't, right? You should know yourself the best. And so as a player, as a coach, as a person, you should be able to be honest with yourself, self-reflect, and use that to help yourself to improve, right? So I think you hit it on the head where you said, who's better to do it than yourself? I think that's a really, really important point.
Yeah, because you can't lie to yourself.
Yeah, well, you can't. People do.
You can lie to yourself, but you know deep down.
Deep down, right. You know deep down what the truth is, right?
Yeah, you know what the truth is. Whereas someone else can say anything to you,
right,
just to maybe make you feel good.
Right.
But when you analyze yourself, you know, right, I could have done better. That's not my full potential.
Right.
And there's this famous saying that when you look at yourself in the mirror, I don't exactly know what the saying is, but it's like when you look at yourself in the mirror, you see like the reality, right? So if you worked really hard, then you can look at yourself in the mirror and you know, right, I put in a good performance today.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think self-reflection is so important, and not only in soccer or football, but in life in general. You know, at school, when you're in a classroom with your teacher, right, and you get into that moment where you're like not focused. You know, self-reflect. Right? Why am I not focused? What is it? Is it the teacher? Is it me? Is it something I ate?
Right.
Something I'm drinking or not drinking?
Right.
So yeah, constant self-reflection is
yeah. And I think it's not used enough. It's not it's just not used enough. And I think even for me, I don't do it enough. I don't think I'm as consistent as I should be with it too. But I think that's a really important tool that anybody can use to improve, even for the parents out there, to improve at work, right? You know, being self-reflective at work, it works the same.
Yeah.
So I think self-reflection, having that time and building that into a routine to be consistent, I think that would really, really help a lot of people. And that's something I want to be more consistent on myself, like you mentioned.
Yeah. Awesome. Perfect. Okay, good stuff. So Fernando, how's the week looking like in terms of training, in terms of your schedule? Are you staying consistent?
I'm trying my best. I'm trying my best out here, staying as consistent as possible. Yeah, everything's looking good over here. Running training sessions. The next week.
Are you guys still online, half on the field, or is it just all on the field now?
Oh, everything's on the field. Everything's on the field, but I am running like a new mentorship program for my players that's on Zoom. So we're starting that this week, which is cool. And then players return to games next weekend.
Woohoo!
So yeah, so first games are up, first matches are coming up. So I'm excited to go out there. I'm hoping to go see several of my players go play with their clubs. Yeah. Because I'm a training academy, so I train kids from multiple clubs. So I'm excited to go see them perform, and they've been training and working so hard. So, you know, it's exciting that they're going to finally be able to play in some matches.
Yeah, that's good fun. Good fun.
Yeah. Wow. What about you over there in London? You got another league match that's coming up after your first win?
Yeah. So now we have to stay consistent with
there we go. Can't be satisfied with the one victory, right?
No, exactly. Yeah, well, for us, it's just training as normal. So Thursdays and Saturdays, and then Sundays we have another league game. So hopefully we can continue that good performance that we put in last week. Take it into this, and then hopefully get another win
there we go
for this weekend. So it will be nice.
Awesome.
But more than the win, it's always just that they're building confidence, right? And they're learning how to compete in games, and it's the experience more than anything else.
Coach Leo, that's why I like you, man. That's why I like you. We're on the same boat there.
But it's the truth. I mean, there was a coach the other day I was listening to, and he said what's more valuable is the process to get into the win rather than the win.
That's everything. The process is everything.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get into this because I could talk about this for days. So, but he's 1,000% right. It's not about getting there. It's about the journey to get there.
The journey to get there. And last bit I'll say on this, because as you said, we could talk about.
Yeah, this is a whole nother episode.
Yeah. He was talking about the lottery. So he used to live in a neighborhood when he was before he became a professional coach, quite a humble neighborhood, and he valued more the family that worked hard to buy the expensive car than the family that won the lottery and bought the expensive car. Because, as you said, it's the whole journey and what it takes to get there that is more valuable than the final result.
And what the journey teaches you.
And what,
right? Because there's lessons along the way.
Yeah.
And so if you just get to the result without the journey, you don't really learn anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really good, because that's something I said to my boys on Sunday last week. I said, right, you guys are going to go home happy because you've won, right? Like,
right.
Everything's going to look better because you've won.
Right.
You've won.
Right.
But you have to know that not every week is going to be like this. Like, there's going to be some weeks where you're going to be on the receiving end.
Right.
But it's how you respond when you lose that teaches you. So are you just going to give up and say, right, we're not good enough? Or are you going to say, right, let's go again, let's try again?
Right.
So yeah, it's the journey. 100%.
Welcome everybody to episode 12 of the Player First. We might as well do it now. Look at this. We're getting.
No. That's it. Yeah, we might as well just carry on.
But I think this is something we should definitely come back to at another time.
That's it. Awesome.
The process is important.
Cool. Awesome. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed another episode. It's always a pleasure, Fernando, to share some time with you, share your knowledge. Good luck with the rest of the week.
Thank you.
And we'll catch up next week again on episode number 12.
There we go. We're getting along, baby. On our way to 20.
On our way to 20. There we go. It's the journey.
Have a good week.
See you later.
See ya.